Good afternoon, everybody. It is December 25th, 2021 at the time of this recording. So, Merry Christmas. The reason I'm recording on Christmas is I've had a cold all week and a bad cough. And so my family is off with my family, and they're doing Christmas Day. And I stayed home because I didn't want to bring germs everywhere. So I was sitting here kind of thinking, oh, this is kind of stinky, but, watched some of the Witcher program and stuff. And then I thought, you know what, in the famous words of Admiral Farragut, damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead. So hopefully I don't cough too much on this video. I've had a cough, and but it seems to be kind of like it wants to be on its way out. So we're going to go ahead and press forward. So Merry Christmas. Got the Christmas tree in the background. And we will, hopefully I'm not clearing my throat too much and stuff. I'll have to watch this video, but this is file 4. I'm actually on file 10 as far as playing it. I need to finish up this ground assault. We're not going to go through big details on the ground assaults, because if you want to see detailed ground assaults, watch the previous video if you haven't. I go into each step and how you do it, but I got a whole bunch of them. If you zoom way out here, all these red markers, starting from here all the way down to here. So this is the German surprise attack. I attacked with everything and anything that could attack, because I think that's what you have to do. I think you have to jump early and hit with everything you can, no matter how brutal it is, and hope to punch a hole. So anyway, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. And again, have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I hope yours is going well. Mine's going good because I'm getting better, and I'll see my family tonight anyway. So that's the important stuff, right? We got family. I was talking to some of my gaming buddies and telling them I was kind of down and out. And they're like, sorry, dude. And I'm like, you know what? I got all I need. I got my family, and I got, good gaming buddies, and it's been a good day. So anyway, onward and upward. So we're not going to go through all the details, but we're doing this combat here. So we're attacking here with these 3 hexes here. So I'm showing you the attackers like in the last video. We're going to activate units that are next to ground assaults or being ground assaulted. It's a 29-5, so 5.8 to 1. I roll a 62 for the house rule. In case you didn't see it on the other video, I was taught a house rule by some guys that play this game, and I'm normally not a house rule guy, but I do like this one. So this would be a 5.8 to 1, so you got an 80% chance of jumping to 6 to 1 or staying at 5 to 1. The rules in the game say you drop the fraction, it would be a 5 to 1 attack. Rolled a 62, so it's going to put us at 6 to 1. Column shifts. 1 right for surprise. Prepared assault gives us 1, and we got 2 engineers. We can use them both because the entrenchment 2. Remember, if you're attacking an IP, you can only use 1 engineer. You can still use the engineered attack, but you don't get his benefit. You don't get the 2 shifts. So we got 1 left for the artillery shift. So these guys, since they're included in the attack, will give a 1 left shift, but we weren't going to not include them because they're 14 points, 14 strength points. So 2 left for the entrenchment. So that's 3 L. So that gives us a net of 1 R. So we end up on the N column. It's line 3 for forest, and the 6th one moves it to the, and then with the shift moves to the M column. So it started in the L column. Die roll modifiers. PR is an 8 versus 6. Lead unit for the Germans is the 2nd Battalion of the 27th Regiment. So we're starting out at a -10. Remember, no combat reserves at all during the surprise game turn. Regimental integrity bonus. Germans get 5 versus the Allies 2. So that's a net of 15. So that we put that against that -10 from earlier, and we're at a +5 now, so it's swinging in the way of the attacker. Armor is 3 versus anti-tank 0. That's a net of 3, but the forest and the entrenchment will remove them, and just to kind of cover that again. So here's your terrain modifier table. So the forest, so we started out with 3. That's a -2. That leaves us with 1, which would normally be okay. You can only have a max of 1 armor point in the woods. But then they're in this entrenchment here, so that leaves it at a -2, so boom, it's gone. So we lose all our benefit armor, but we're still getting the 2 points for attacking. So, it is what it is. All right, so we need high for the attacker, low for the defender. We roll an 86 for the attacker, is pretty good. We roll a 3. Remember, 10s are 0. 3 for the defenders. They both rolled pretty hot. So let's see what happens. So the attacker ends up getting a 91 with the modifier, so that inflicts a PR check, 2 discretionary, and then 2 mandatory. And the allies score an 8, which I think they can only get like a 30 or less to even do anything, and they ended up with a proficiency check and a discretionary hit. So the Germans will make their PR check. They rolled a 6, so they failed. So now this star turns into a discretionary, so now we have 2 discretionary. Germans are going to want to try to hold. They do not hold. They tied it. So they did not hold. We continue our not so great German attack. And before I do that too, I was going to try to hold no matter what because I've already inflicted a 3-2. But you can wait and see if they pass their checks. We have to do a PR check for the Allies. They get a 9, so they fail. I'm sorry, it was a 2-2. Turns it to a 3-2. So now it's a 3-2. They'll be able to drop discretionary hits based on our retreat. Now we can retreat up to 2. We have 2 discretionary, so we can shake them both off with retreats. For each hex you retreat, that lets the defender drop a discretionary hit. So when it's all said and done, that 3-2 will be a 1-2. So it's kind of a self-regulation on the intensity of the combat. And if the defender was retreating, you wouldn't have to take all those damages because he's retreating. All right, so we'll do the retreats first. The armor retreats here and then stops because it goes into woods. There's no road or trail. And the infantry unit will continue on. We'll retreat these guys and get them out of there. These guys retreat next to an enemy, but there's no movement cover. It's movement covering terrain, so there's no loss, so they can continue. They end up in an overstack because they can't end next to an enemy, so we couldn't go this way or this way. We had to go that way. All right, now, I did make one little mistake here. I have 2 mandatory hits, and this unit here has 2 steps on it. Originally, I was like, oh, yeah. So that kills him, and it's like, wait a minute, that doesn't kill him. What are you doing? There's something called max step loss, which applies in certain situations. And the thing is he'll take 1, and then that other mandatory hit will convert to a discretionary hit. So we have 1 discretionary, 2 mandatory. He's going to take the 1 loss, 1 step loss, and then this mandatory becomes a discretionary. So then he has 2 discretionary he has to deal with. And I'll show you how you do that. So first he'll take the step loss. Boom, we put the spade under him. So now that means he has 1 step. And then we have to take 2 discretionary, and we're going to take those as retreats. So we go 1, 2. We end up retreating to here. So they did bust a little hole here, but because they have to do what they do first, they retreated, and then I could have tried to hold, but then they become, you don't have max step loss, and he'll just be killed. So at this point, run away and live to fight another day. All right, next battle. So we're going to run through these a little bit quicker. I'm just going to give you the stats, partially because A, I got this cough, and B, there is a whole lot of attacks to go through. All these prepared assaults. Yeah, I just think you want to get the prepared assaults going because you gotta punch that hole, right? All right, so here we got 18-1. It's just basically an anti-tank unit against the Fallschirmjäger, fully loaded with engineers and some more anti-tank of their own, which they don't need right now. So it's end column. It's line 1 because we're in the open. So we get shifts for surprise, prepared assault, and 1 for the engineers. And then they get 2 to the left for the entrenchment, 1 left for the adjacent friendly. So that ends up being a 3L, so there's no column shifts. PR check. German lead unit would be the 3rd Battalion of the 9th Regiment, which is a 5, versus the anti-tank of a 6, which I actually forgot about the entrenchment bonus, so it's actually a 7, so it ends up being a -10. Regimental integrity bonus. Germans get 3, Allies get 0. So we're at a net of +5 for the Germans now. There's no armor, so it's a +5 on the end column, which is a 67 and a 93, which ends up being a 72, which is a 2-2, so bye-bye anti-tank unit, and a 98 is no effect. So he's gone. He gets activated because he's next to a ground assault. And then because of all the attacks there, because of all the hits there was, I could potentially advance 3 hexes because we only removed 1. The other 3 didn't get accounted for. But there's a few different rules here. Armor can advance up to 4. Infantry can advance up to 2. So now we're down to a 2 hex max advance. The problem is as soon as the first hex has to be the defender's hex. So as soon as anybody goes here, this creates a movement halt. So they'll have to stop. So we are punching some holes, but the American defenses are still, slowing us up a little bit. All right, here we got one. Ooh, a little recon unit against some 18th Infantry Division. So it's 13-2, 6.5-1. We roll a 1, so we get 7-1. It's line 2 on the end column. Shifts, surprise, prepared assault, 1 for the engineer. And they get 2 for the entrenchment. So it's a net shift of 1R. PR, I got, did I do that right? The Germans, I'm saying, is a 6. And the Americans, that might be right. 7 because they'd normally be a 6. It's a -5, no CR. Rib, Allies none, Germans 3. So they get +15. So now we're at a +10 of the die roll. So armor is 2-1 in favor of the Germans. So that gives them 1. Okay. And so you remember we got this looks like a Stug there. I don't think that's a Hetzer. Maybe it's a Hetzer. We got that. It's got an anti-tank of 2 on the attack. He's got an anti-tank of 1. So that gives us a net of 1. But then the entrenchment is a -2, so we get nothing. So it's end column with a +10. 91 and an 11. So they both did what they needed to do. The Allies rolled low and the attacker, the Axis, rolled high. So and I put a plus 110. I meant 10. Then I seen it later and I'm like, yeah, 110. I think the most you can have is 60, but still. So 101 is a 3-3. So that guy's going to be toast. And 21 is no effect. Now this is where we can advance 2. So let's go ahead and show you how that works. So he goes away, and then there was 6 hits. So that leaves 5 unaccounted for hits, which you could never use 5. But that means I can technically advance 5 hexes or whatever the units can advance. And these are, so I got the armor unit, which could advance 4, but I'm not going to do that, right? I'm not going to advance the armor by himself and get him clobbered. So here's what I did. He went 2 there. Now remember, everyone has to go into this defender's hex first, and then they can go whichever way they want. So he's going to go up there, and these guys with the attached engineers are going to jump to the north here. So look at that. We're starting to make a little bit of a gap there. Starting to try to get around these guys. All right. Sorry, I'll keep moving along. It's easy to just sit here and yak about this stuff. But all right, next one, 14-6, so 2.33-1. Rolled a 4, so that's going to bump us to a 3-1. So things have started to shift in the German favor a little bit. We get the PA, the surprise, and an engineer. They get a vantage point. Remember these triangles are vantage points. In the beginning, I didn't really focus on those, and they are very helpful. They get 2 left for the entrenchment 2, 1 left for the friend because he's next to somebody that's attacking. And he's also an advantage point. So that's 5 shifts to the left. So we end up with 2 shifts to the left. We start on the H column, line 3, and we move down to the F column. The PR, the Allies are 7 due to the entrenchment. Axis is 6, so that's a -5. There's no CR. Rib is Allies get 2. Germans get 2, so they wash out. So we're still at -5. Armor, Germans have 3, U.S. has 0, but the woods and the entrenchment kick it out again. So one of the, we'd actually be able to use some of this armor if we weren't dealing with fieldworks, if we weren't dealing with that, the dug-in troops. But you can see where it's tough sledding here in the Ardennes, where if you play some other maps where it's wide open, you get to utilize that armor a lot better. So, okay, Germans roll 78, Allies roll a 42. A 73 is a 1, and a 37 is a 1-1. So the Germans have to do their stuff first. So they took a discretionary and a mandatory. So they're going to take at least one hit. They're going to try to hold, because if they don't, that discretionary hit against this pile here, against this 106, will just go away, right? We don't want that to happen. Now, this is where you could have a difference of opinion, where you could say, discretion's a better part of valor, go ahead and back up, keep your steps for later. I decided I'm just going to, if the Allies, that's right, not a popcorn ball earlier, the Allies, you'll see some later on where they don't have any hits to take, well, then I might as well just back off, because I'm going to hold my ground to take hits. I mean, I won't do that, but excuse me. So anyway, 6 is fail because you have to roll below your PR. So they have to retreat towards the HQ. So there they go. And because I had armor, I was thinking about artillery. So I didn't have to take the hit. Allies get to ignore the hit due to the retreat. So we go down to here. All right. I took that artillery shift off because these guys were here and they retreated. We could really use those 10 points right now. But so they only have 11 attacking 4, which I probably still would have considered. But normally you can try to call off attacks if you've taken a beating from artillery, but in this game you can't on the surprise turn because everyone just launches. There's no coming back. All right, so we got 11-4 into the forest, 2.75 to 1. Rolled 34, so we get a 3 to 1 on the H column. Shifts are surprise artillery. Why did I do an artillery shift? I think I did that wrong. Oh, no. I didn't mean artillery shift. I meant prepared assault. Surprise and prepared assault. They get the entrenchment for 2, so it's 2 to 2, so it's a wash. PR is 7 to 5, so that's a -10. No combat reserve. The rib, Allies get none, Germans get 10 for a +10, so we end up at a net 0. Americans have armor versus a German anti-tank of 4. That's the first time I have to do that on my own, and I was like, well, how does that work? So rule 13.8.4e, if the attacker's anti-tank factor is equal to or greater than the defender's armor factor, stop here. Do not award any bonuses to either side. So you can't get bonuses attacking their tanks with really good anti-tank stats. So makes sense. I just wasn't sure what to do with that. So 0, column H, no modifiers. Ooh, a 13 for the Germans and a 67. So they both don't roll very good. 13's a no effect. 67 is a PR check. PR check for the Germans. They fail. So now this is an example. All right, so now that PR check turns into a discretionary hit. And I'm like, well, normally I'd hold my ground, but I didn't do any damage to the Americans. So if I did hold my ground, I would take a hit and I would gain nothing for it. So we will just retreat the 1 hex and be happy with that. All right, so down to here. All right, I'm going to work on blowing through these a little faster. All right, so we're down here. I'm going to show you who's fighting because I always like to see that. So we got the 106th here. We got the 62nd. Pretty much all infantry, a little armor support. Here we go. 24 to 6, a 4 to 1. Line 2, K column in the rough. PR is 7 to 5, so it ends up being a negative 10. No combat reserves. Rib is allies none, 5 for the Axis, so plus 25, so that's a net of plus 15. The armor is 2 to 0, but it gets wiped out due to the entrenchment, and rough is a negative 1. So we're on the K column of the plus 15. We roll a 37 and a 43. That turns into a 52, which is a 1-1, and a 58, which is no effect. So the attacker doesn't have to do anything. The defender has to decide what to do. So they have a discretionary and a mandatory. Now, excuse me, we're in that entrenchment. We want to keep that entrenchment. So, oh, I did forget the artillery shift, so wrong column. 52 is a 2, so 2 discretionaries. It's the same result. But the Germans have a star, so they have to make a PR check first. They get a 4 and pass it, so ends up being this 2 discretionary hits. There's not a mandatory hit. And I removed a CR marker because that was on up there for some reason. I don't know why. So back to this one. Okay, so finishing this up. Oh, the discretionary hits. You auto pass when you're in entrenchment. So if you look here now at the 106th, they were a full strength, and now they have taken 2 hits because there is no max step loss if you hold your ground. But there's no way we're going to give up that entrenchment 2 and run off because, let's see, where am I? So let's say he's here, and let's say he would retreat 1-2 or 1-2, right? Then these guys could have advanced and followed him, and he wouldn't have the defense. So we're hoping that these guys can give us one more turn at this entrenchment. All right, down to here. So here we have the 28th Infantry Division with some anti-tank against the 116th Panzer. Now these guys are not out of command. They're right on the line. They can attack over the line. They won't be able to advance there if they win. My apology, this cold now seems to be bopping me again. So we'll see what happens here. 25 to 9, 2.78 to 1. We rolled an 83, so it stays at 2 to 1. Line 3 for Forest, G column, shifts. We get surprise, prepared assault, and 2 engineers for a total of 4 against 2 for the entrenchment. So it ends up being a net 2 right, puts us in the J column. PR is an 8 versus 7. The Zand 2 is our lead unit, so we're at negative 5 so far. No CR. Rib is 0 to 5, so it's plus 25 for the Germans, so we get a plus 20 total now. Germans have 6 armor using Zand, and 1 are using Zand 1 as the lead armor unit. Zand 2 is the lead GA, so US has an anti-tank of 3. That leaves us 3 armor, and I was pretty excited about that until I figured out, well, we lose 2 for the Forest and 2 for the entrenchment, so we get nothing. So, J column with a plus 20. That is a 9. That is abysmal. 77, that is also abysmal. So 29, we get to cause a PR check to the Allies, and they get no effect. PR check for the Allies, they pass, so essentially nothing happens there. All right, next battle. More of the 28th here trying to hold the line against the 116th Panzer. It was 17 to 8. 2.13 to 1, so we rolled, and it's going to be 2 to 1 in the Forest, so G column. PR is 8 to 7, leading with Voigt, 1st Battalion 156, so negative 5. Need to do shifts. Right for surprise, right for prepared assault, so 2 to the right. They get a VP, entrenchment for 2. They get 1 for this artillery shift, so that's a net 2L, which puts us on the E column. No CR. Rib is US 0, Germans 2 for a net of plus 10, so we're at plus 5. We have armor of 4 against their 0, but the forest and the entrenchment 2 are exactly -4. So we get no armor bonus again. So we're on the H column with a -5. And that's wrong. It should be the E column with a +5. Oh, I didn't catch that E column. Holy cow. So 3982 ends up being a 44, so no effect. And 82 is an 87, so a 1. So we will just no need to hold. We're going to take the retreat and go back 1. Again, there's no reason, because if we hold, it doesn't do us any good. All right, next one here. We got more 28th ID against some 560th ID with some engineers. Let's see what they can do. It's 9-8, because due to this river and restricted terrain, it's not very good. And I didn't know it was in all these stacks, and I didn't realize all of these were full battalions, because the 28th is pretty spread out in other places where they only have companies. Okay, and I thought the engineers could ferry me, but they have to start next to the river, so you don't get to be ferried by the engineers. So live and learn, right? So I just put the rules in there. They got to be next to the river hex, so they couldn't ferry, so I had to take half. 1.13 to 1. I rolled a double 0. So we bump up to 1.25 to 1. We don't jump to 2 to 1 because there is a 1.25 and a 1.5 to 1, a 3 to 2 column. So we're on the E column. Shifts. My apology, excuse me. 1 right for surprise, 1 right for prepared assault, 2 right for the engineers. Ends up being 4 to the right. 2 left for the entrenchment only, so we go 2 to the right, which is really needed for these guys here. So we're on the G column. So that puts us here, which isn't great, right? But we were back here, right? So we definitely, every help we can get on this river attack. DRMs, 8 to 6. So it's a -10 for the Germans so far, no CR. Rib is 0 for the US, 3 for the Germans, so that ends up netting out at +10 now. There's no armor, so it's on the G column with a +5. Can they roll good? They roll a 6. Are you kidding me? And the Allies roll a 1. That's going to be brutal. So 11 is no effect, shocker. And a 6 is a 1-2. So we suffer 2 mandatory hits and 1 discretionary. So we're going to run on the discretionary, but each one of these guys gets to take a hit. All right, so going to retreat. So 2 discretionary. Oh, and I can't just take them both on the battalions, because after you take one from the lead unit, your next priority is any armor and then any engineers that contributed to the attack. So we're going to lose an engineer step. So that was costly. Okay. Except I'm tricking myself here. Lead unit, no armor. Oh, yeah. So, yeah. So that gets costly. This guy lost his engineer and a step, and then everybody's got to retreat 1 hex. So these guys run back to where they pretty much started. Okay, over here. So we got infantry company and an anti-tank now against 2nd Panzer. And these are 2nd Panzer, but they're broke down companies. I don't know why they started broke down, but they did. So we're attacking with all that. We're going to use this V-bomb. The 2nd Aufführung, or however you say it, is going to be our lead unit and doing all the damage, because we really want to pop this spot open. So it's 13 to 3, 4.33 to 1. We roll a 32, so we go to 5 to 1. So we're feeling pretty good about it right now. We get a right for the surprise, a right for prepared assault. They get 1 left for VP, 2 left for the entrenchment. So it ends up being a 1 to the left. So forest at 5 to 1 starts in the K, so we move down to the J column. And in case you guys are ever listening, J goes to H. There is no I column, so if I ever say J to H or H to I, that's why. PR is 7 and 9. The Germans actually have better PR this time because we're using this bad boy here with a 9 against their 7, so we get a plus 10. We could have led with these guys, but then we'd be at negatives, and I really want to knock this open and start trying to take control of this road here. None for either for rib. Armor is 2 to anti-tank of 3. So 1 for the Allies, so negative 10. So ends up being a net 0 on the J column. 62 and 13 is a 1-1 against the Allies and a star 1 against the Germans. So the Germans make their PR check and they pass it. So they have one mandatory hit, which they got to take on this lead unit, but it was worth it, I think. So he'll take the hit here. I'll let you see him take the hit if I hover over it. Oh, I guess I removed that. So boom, he takes his hit. But now they have a mandatory and a discretionary they have to take. So the mandatory has to go against the infantry company because that would have been their lead unit. Get a sip of water here. So if we try to hold the anti-tank gun, they'd just be dead. So there's no reason to do that, so we'll just retreat. It's probably not super helpful because he's not super strong, but it's better than just dying now. You never know what'll happen. So now they advance, and we're on to the next battle. There's an engineer and an infantry company against the 26th Infantry Division, just 2 infantry because that's all they had in the area. 12 to 3, 4 to 1. It's in a village, so line 2 of the K column shifts. Surprise, prepared assault against an artillery shift, entrenchment 2, and a VP, so it's 4 to 2, so it shifts 2 to the left of the H column. PR is 7 to 7, so it's a wash. Ribs none, because these guys, after I looked it up, I'm like, they're from the 77th, they're from the 39th. So I didn't even have the same regiments attacking. No armor, so H column with no modifiers. 16 is not going to be great, and 83 is probably not going to be great. It's a no effect and no effect. So they get to be there for next turn, and hopefully these guys can start coming up and help them. All right, we're getting past the biggest part of the bulge, and we're on the downswing here. This is probably one actually in my benefit, he's worth attacking. So 6 to 2, 3 to 1. J column. This is all part of that 29th Infantry Division stuff that's all spread out, which I didn't realize the dudes up here were all going to be full-strength battalions. So, it is what it is. Shifts. 1 right for surprise. 1 right for prepared assault. Against 2 for the entrenchments, so no shifts. PR is 7 to 7. No combat reserve, no rib. So, no armor. Pretty basic battle. J column, no modifiers. 29, that's not going to be great. 75 should be pretty horrid. Yeah, so 29 is a PR check only. 75 is no effect. PR check for the Allies is a 7, so they failed. So they're going to have to retreat because all they are is a company. So if they try to just automatically hold their ground, they'll take the hit and they'll be dead. So we did get rid of the entrenchment. And they retreat 1, and we could advance if we wanted to, but if we did, we'd be out of command. So I don't have to advance, so I'll stay there because here's my command line at the 26th. So we're just using these guys to try to bust some chops, to try to make things easier for these guys later. All right, this one here, just an infantry company, the 28th Infantry Division being attacked by the Fallschirmjägers with some engineers. So let's see how this turns out. A 15 to 2, 7.5 to 1. 7 to 1 is the highest you can go, so there's no reason to roll. Line 2 on the end column. You can go 8 to 1, but I was referring to line 2. The highest you can go is 7 to 1. So you can do an 8 to 1, but that's the highest you can go. Shifts. 1 for surprise, 1 for PA, 2 for the engineers. That's a total of 4 against their 2 for the entrenchment, 1 for the VP, so 3. So we just stay on the furthest column because we can't go any more to the right. PR is 7 to 6, so it's a -5 so far. No CR. Rib is Allies 0, Germans 3, so +15. That seems to be the theme here. So we got a +10 net. No armor anti-tank, so it's end column with a +10, a 45, and a 32. A 55 now is a 2-1, and a 42 is no effect. So that little guy is going to be gone because he's got to take the mandatory hit. And then because there was still 2 factors here that didn't get, they can actually advance 2. They have to go into the hex he occupied. And then infantry, the most they can advance is 2. So they get that 1 extra advance, which is a big deal. So let's go ahead and advance these fellas. So we got to go into the defender's hex first. All right. Getting pretty excited about that. All right, we're down to about 4 attacks, I think. So again, I apologize for the coughing and things like that, but I think we did okay. And I wanted to get a video up. So let's go ahead and continue. Oh, we got another Koi here. He's got artillery shift on him, and this is a mixed attack. 5th Fallschirmjäger with the 352nd. So I figured the extra strength points was worth it. We'll see. All right. 18 to 2. On line 3, Forest, it's 9 to 1. So end column, shifts, surprise, PA. And then they had an artillery shift, so we get a shift for that. So that's 3 against a vantage point, entrenchment 2, so it's a wash. No CR. Ribs, US has 0. Germans have 2 for +10. No armor anti-tank to deal with, so end column +10. It's a 34 and an 85. So that ends up being a 44, which is a star 1-1. And what did I say? Oh, wait. Oh, yeah, mixed formation. So actually it ends up on the end column, which won't help the Americans on their roll, but the German result ends up being a 1-1. So there was no PR check. Okay, so 95 was still no effect for the Allies. So 1 mandatory hit, 1 discretionary hit. It doesn't really matter because he's only 1 guy there, so he's got to take the mandatory and he's gone. What it will matter is advancing, right? Because I ended up with a 1-1. The most they could have advanced is 2 anyway, so even if it would have been a 2-1 because of a failed PR, if that would have been the actual result, it wouldn't have mattered unless there was a vehicle unit there. So they get to advance. Got to go in the defender's hex first. I meant to go there and then there. So just ignore that. I was going there and there. Same result. All right. So feeling kind of good about this whole area. We're getting a good push there. Now we're down here. It's going to be some tough sledding, I think, but we'll see if we got enough juice here. Here we just got a company. We got the 352nd. Nine to 2, so 4.5 to 1. Ends up being a 5 to 1 after the die roll, so it's K column for the Forest. PR is 7 to 5, so -10. No CR. Ribs, US 0, Germans 2, so it's a +10. Now we're at a net of +0. No armor, so it's a straight up roll on the K column. And then I was like, oh, maybe I should probably do shifts. So surprise, PA and engineers. And VP, entrenchment, and adjacent friendly, so no column shift anyway. But, you know, sometimes you get flying on this stuff and you got to remember, I like to still look at the charts because sometimes you can get ahead of yourself. So 7 to 5, it's a -10. I wonder why that repeated. All that stuff repeated. I wonder if there's a little glitch there. Okay, so it ends up being an 8 for the Germans, another brilliant roll, and a 28 for the Allies. So an 8 is a star, so a PR check, and a 28 is a star 1. So Another big missed opportunity is these little companies are pretty hefty in these little entrenchments. PR check for the Germans, they pass, so now it's a 1. The U.S. rolls theirs, they pass, so it leaves the Germans 1 discretionary hit to deal with. So we're just going to retreat because we can't inflict any damage on the U.S. anyway. So we end up retreating. All right, we're down to last 2 attacks. All right, these dudes here, this is a armored infantry against the 276, the bunch of infantry. I don't remember if there's any. Nope, there's no anti-tank. I don't think they have any. I don't see any here. So is it under here? Nope. So they don't have any anti-tank support or tank support. So we end up being with the river. Got to factor all that in. On here, I said, "Can we even lose this one?" I said, "Let me show you how." It's 21-3, so 7-1 in the forest is the M column. Shifts are surprise, PA, and engineers against vantage point and entrenchment, so it's a wash. PR is 8-6, so it's a -10. No CR. Rib is US 0. Germans get the max of 6, so it's a +20 on the die roll. Those pluses on the die roll, I think, are more important sometimes, unless the column shifts are crazy. I'd rather have modifiers than die rolls, or column shifts, really. Both have anti-tank, no armor, so it's the M column with a +20. And the Germans come out firing at 23 again against the 49. A 43 is a 1-1. 69 is no effect. So the discretionary will kill the unit there, but boy, do we make it hard on ourselves. So they're gone. The entrenchment's gone, and now I got to figure out how to advance. But we have issues here with the river and this guy here. If we advance into here, they can only advance 1 more spot. So here's what we end up doing. He goes there and then here. They advance across the river. I was doing some moving around here to see if I could still do that, and I'm just going to leave him there. That's really the best I could do, because the problem is we have all this restrictive terrain, and he was here, so he has to advance into here first and then here. And with restrictive, or the river, he wouldn't be allowed to do that. He'd have to stop here. So I wasn't, you can't just jump across into other hexes. You have to go into the defender's hex first, and then you can advance your other hex. So it really limited me, but it's still starting to punch a little bit of a hole. All right, we got our last company defending against the 212th. Pretty much just infantry. Do they have artillery or armor? I thought they had armor. Oh, yep, they do right there. Just hasn't been down yet. I remember everybody had to move prepared assault only. So, all right. So here's what we're going to end up with. We are going to end up with. And I'm going to go activate some guys that would have activated. He would have activated because the guy's next to him fighting. So he activates and he activates. And he activates. 12-2, 6-1. It's a town, so it's line 3 in the L column. Shifts are prepared assault. You do not get surprised against the 4th Infantry Division, which I hope I did that right. I was pretty sure that was a 28th guy up here, but hopefully I didn't do that wrong. You get 1 left for vantage point, 1 for artillery shift on this guy, 2 left for entrenchment 2, 1 left for friendlies adjacent to the enemy. So we end up with a net of 5L, which is a net of 4 to the left. So G column really hurts. It's killing us that there's no engineers here. That's gonna be brutal. 7-7. We're using the Fusilier unit, which is right there. So we're tied on that. There's no CR. Ribs are 0-3, so +15 on the die roll. And no armor. So G column with a +15, and we roll another mediocre 34. But the Allies roll horrible 85. A 49 is a PR check, and a 100 is no effect, so Allies have a hit to deal with. So they got to make a PR check, and they pass. So no effect on each. All right. Now, I know what happens down here because I'm actually on file 10. This is only file 4. But I've been having a blast. I hope you guys are enjoying it. Let's see. Let's finish out this file. Make sure there's nothing here. Okay, yeah. So I go on to the next turn. So that's where we're at. We didn't do too bad. I'll zoom out just a hair here. We got a couple of spots we pushed through. We got a little bit of a push going on here. This is kind of disappointing. We've just been rolling horrible. We got a pretty good push in this area right here, right? We're getting a pretty nice push there for these two to push through there. And then when Panzer Lair activates, I'll have to check, but I want to say they can function in each one of these positions equally. It's a special rule for them, but I'll have to check. If not, we'll figure out what to do with them. This was okay up here. We got a pretty good little push here again, with a little bit of push in. What I was most excited about was up here around the Schnee Eifel. We got a really good push out into here. We got rid of that armored cavalry group. We'll see what we can do with that, because in the 16 a.m. turn, Piper's active. And remember, I accidentally moved him here. Asked some questions, learned a whole lot of questions. Was all excited thinking I could move him there based on the rules, but then read the exclusive rules and you can't change any theaters or attach or detach. So I had to fix that and move it back. Not much going on up here at all. We failed abysmally up here on the last video, and same with here. So, but we got to keep these guys honest, and we got to, keep them so they can't shift too much. So that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. Again, Merry Christmas, and I hope you have a Happy New Year. Hopefully when I go back and watch this or other people watch it, I wasn't coughing and hacking too much, and that can be annoying. But thanks again. Hope you have a great day, and hopefully I can get another video done here if this cough goes away. I got another one to do for Last Chance for Victory as well, and we'll just keep pushing forward. So thanks for joining. Bye.